music through to Cabaret Voltaire, Giorgio Moroder, 80s film soundtracks. Mouse has produced 3 albums, compilation rarities, and a wide range of unofficial and underground releases. His last album was in 2011 and was entitled We Must Become Pitiless Censors of Ourselves. In today's listening session, John's going to be talking about his influences. We're going to be hearing some, watching some stuff connected to that. And he's going to be talking about that with writer, artist, and interviews editor for The Believer, Ross Simonini. So please give a warm welcome to Ross and John.
All right, so we're gonna start off with listening here.
I'm gonna beam down to the two watch. I'll break you. What do you say?
Now, this is me accompanying the music to that on just a crappy upright, recording it in my living room. Oh, sorry, I gotta turn it up here. Just to kind of bring out the cantus firmus-esque bass line there and the modal quality of the vocal melody, that's what the intention there was.
Right. Yeah, let's unpack that because you talked a little about how a lot of this 80s synthesizer-based music actually has a root in early music, Renaissance music, and medieval Escan. What is the root exactly?
Yeah, I wish I knew a little bit more. It's not exactly my area of expertise. We were talking about this, there's a whole science of the modal theory and the Guidonian hand and all that stuff, and the ending tones and the psalm tones and everything like that. But essentially, the fragments we were hearing there in that television advertisement music. They're all modal. They're all modal formulas. They all use the ecclesiastical church modes, which for centuries in the Western musical tradition were essentially neglected and regarded as a primeval error of the human intellect, and set aside in favor of the functional harmony and the major-minor tonality and everything like that. So suddenly, of course, there's precedent with the so-called French Impressionists and jazz music, where there's a new interest in this at a certain point in the 20th century, but I just find it interesting that in an advertisement for bicycles, we have this almost ethereal religious invocations via the ecclesiastical modes, so on and so forth.
But it's not just this commercial, right?
In general, in 80s, and so I've said. And maybe it sounds ridiculous out of context, and perhaps it even sounds more ridiculous in context, but this argument that what you're hearing is essentially the interest in modes and modal harmony, so to speak, over and above some kind of 80s reference. It's this thing both 80s in myself share there, an interest in that.
So modal harmony, for people who don't know, it's before the idea of chords and Bach and this sort of structures of European music that are in some ways sort of some people view them as a sort of prison that we're trying to break out of. And this is all before that. This is all early music, Renaissance music, medieval, when it was just about the line and
the voice leading, the rules of voice leading. I get this idea. I've gotten this impression from somewhere that it's a misguided notion. But even so, conventional wisdom has it, of course, that in the Renaissance and in the Middle Ages, they did not tend to think vertically. you know, in the way we would think of chords. They thought that horizontally in terms of voice leading. And so any kind of vertical correspondences would be something they weren't necessarily thinking in terms of. All of that kind of was slowly set in relief in the subsequent centuries. So I just find it interesting then to revisit that music in terms of this dimension they weren't even necessarily thinking of, the harmonic dimension. So in other words, it's almost even paradoxical to say modal harmony, in the sense that they wouldn't have even been thinking. So I mean, we could even you know, play an example here of exactly what I'm talking about. So, you know, here's this Josquin is really famous from his Missa La So Fa Re Mi, and that's a perfect example. So essentially the whole mass is based around this play with the La So Fa Re Mi, which in terms of those syllables would have been understood as by his contemporaries to mean leave me alone. So he has this theme, this da 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 da, and he inverts it and retrogrades it and does stretto with it where he slows it down, and the whole mass is essentially you know, a masterpiece of playing with voice leading, with tricks and games of voice leading. But my interest in it is precisely perhaps what he was least interested of all which is this vertical dimension that arises, that you can rest from it. And I'll show you what I mean. You can listen to the understatement. Let's just imagine taking the vertical chords, so to speak, of any given moment in that piece, and then using them literally in this kind of pop, heavy-handed playing chords, and so essentially that's what I would. I did a thing like the vertical sonorities are essentially collapsed into, you know, or ripped out of the Josquin piece and used as chords. And an even better example of that I could play another one here from a much earlier, an entirely disparate musical situation from Josquin, which is this Michaud piece, Middle Age music, which would have been similar in its disregard for the vertical dimension, but different in the sense that the rules of voice leading hadn't yet been so codified. The third and the sixth would have been recent discoveries around this time. The intervals that we're so familiar with today that form up the chords we use, and the cadence wasn't necessarily so much of an anchor for
This is hundreds of years before.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're consciously doing this. You're sort of filtering this early music.
Well, yeah, I mean, what strikes me about it is several things about this early music, right? I mean, obviously, it's an entirely disparate musical universe in more ways than we could possibly hope to elaborate here. But I think there's certain similarities it shares with our own musical situation in the sense that yes, in the sense that they have less of a sense for this vertical dimension, in the sense that we might as well. So this is the argument I've made that in new so-called new wave music, for instance, perhaps you have it that the compositional thought isn't necessarily so much vertical as it is the guitar player and the keyboard player and the bassists are each kind of playing horizontal and modal melodies, and they're thinking in those terms, and any vertical correspondence is just kind of supposed or sensed. Obviously this isn't absolute. There's plenty of people that know chords and all that kind of thing, but I think that's foreign, perhaps, or arguably foreign to something interesting or unique about the type of music we make today. So not only do you have the ecclesiastical modes and the harmonies that would then subsequently follow from them, but that you have this compositional thought that is more about you play a line and I play a line,
Right.
and we have these different melodies moving horizontally through time, and any kind of vertical correspondence is then just a consequence of that,
or punk or grunge, where they're using these chords that aren't even full chords, they're just power chords.
Right.
It's not even fully developed harmony. It's kind of reducing it back again.
Right, and again, I mean, this isn't to suggest for a second that there aren't functional relationships and there aren't, it isn't an awareness of chords in many corners. It's just to say, perhaps, there's the opposite of that is also the case, and perhaps that's ultimately more interesting. Especially, so we're talking about the vertical dimension in general, but also, functionally, this abandonment of function in the sense of, tonal, major, minor, the subdominant, dominant, resolving to the tonic type of thing. I mean, when I was sending some initial remarks about all this stuff to you, I thought that was interesting as well. So you see the cadence, formulas of cadence across entirely disparate musical epochs coming to rest upon the name of the divine at the end of any given piece. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right. You know what I mean?
Or the amen.
Yeah. The amen cadence, and suddenly with pop, suddenly with punk, the thing just ends in a freak out, in a silly climax, or it just ends arbitrarily, like, oh, that's it, it's over, this song is over, and maybe that gives us some kind of insight vis-a-vis music. In the way perhaps music always can, into our situation in general, is that it no longer comes to rest upon the name of the divine, even unconsciously, in the sense that there would still be a nod to the cadence. It just ends in a freak out, or ends arbitrarily, without reason.
All this music really does start with all this music. The Renaissance music and the medieval music all came out of the divine. It was all people trying to invoke that. And then here it gets, built into this, 80s synthesizer music. And, what happens to the divine then? I mean, is it still, do you think, is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they the ethereal, right? They talk about the ethereal.
Right.
And I wonder if, whether it's some kind of cultural residue with respect to the kind of, Palestrina, Josquian invocations, or whether it's film score, because obviously whenever they go into the mysterious realms, it's also,
the medieval music,
it's the Neptune from Holst the Planet, or where we have the Dorian type of harmonic space that you're hearing. So whether it's the one or the other, there's certainly cultural associations with the mysterious and the divine amongst these types of harmonies. And for whatever reason, they suddenly became a matter of concern for musicians in the 80s.
And do you think conscious, were musicians thinking about this? Or
it's a question that I find interesting, and I've never run across anybody who has addressed it explicitly, why it is that it would be the case that in certain decades or in certain popular music moments, specific harmonic spaces that suddenly become more of interest, or suddenly become part and parcel of the thing. And then abandon altogether. I think that's an interesting question.
Maybe you could play some of the other cinematic stuff that we were talking about, like the Tangerine Dream, or maybe the Flight of the Navigator. So with the Flight of the Navigator, this is nostalgic touchstone.
Yeah. I mean, this one is more difficult to see.
cruising on the spaceship.
No,
Right?
he's on his way to the spaceship, and he gets inside of a little robot, and it's just the image of it is just this little robot like driving through the sunset on the NASA grounds. It's a beautiful scene.
He stows away in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is so that this idea of like cinematic music and how maybe some of this, you know, these original ideas from the divine and medieval music have been sort of I've put to work in the service of you know, cinema and same with the synthesizer. You know, it's become this sort of it exists in this particular place in culture. You know, and you almost don't hear it as music in the way that we hear, you know, pop songs on the radio as music. You know, and is that something that you're trying to harness at all in your music? This sort of whatever this word cinematic means now.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this. I found it interesting that there isn't so much. There's not musical effects as there once might have been in terms of explicit sound effects created by you know, the strings like representing flies or the timpanis representing thunder, like that kind of thing. Yeah. I find it interesting that is suddenly been cast aside. But it would be something that goes over and above the cinematic, in the sense that even having a conversation like this whatsoever is it already comes too late. Like we're talking about it after the fact,
right?
You know, the creating the thing and just trying to approximate it in terms of language. But yeah, I mean, to the extent that the cinematic would seem to you know, converge upon you know, the ever more expressive or vast dimensions that you know, music is capable of you know, bringing about.
It's kind of nostalgic, right? Like